Hello friends! My name is Lilith and welcome back to pyperbleu. A lot of you have asked about my favorite artist. I compiled a small list to share with everybody. The first one I wanted to start off with is Mobius, otherwise known as Jean Giraud. I can't pronounce his French name because I don't want to butcher it and embarrass myself. I was completely blown away just by the scope of his career and how he was able to push himself forward and always try something different and daring. He pretty much reshaped the comic world in terms of how Americans view comic. He is a Taurus sun, but I do think his works are very Aquarian. As Mobius, he focused on merging science fiction with fantasy, and his voice can be described as surreal, dreamlike, almost abstract, if you will. At one point, he worked on a film together, which was supposed to be an adaptation of Dune. Unfortunately, the film was never produced, and I was so heartbroken to find out, because my stepdad told me the one that did come out in the 70s isn't that good. Dune is so imagine Game of Thrones, but intergalactic. I've been listening to the audiobook of Dune. I am about 7 hours in, and I think the total is... Because before this, I was never really that into audiobooks. It moves too slowly because I'm a pretty fast reader. So I grow impatient as I am listening to the story because in my mind, I'm like, oh, like at this point, I'm already like 2 chapters ahead or something. This video is not sponsored by Audible, but I wish it was. So sorry, the battery died. But I am back, yes. I got super off track, so let us continue to the next artist. It's no surprise that Mobius has really influenced the world in our perception of comics and illustration. So another artist I want to bring up is a contemporary artist. His name is Killian Inge. I really enjoy his reworks and adaptations of existing classics. I think he did a great job of merging his own sensibilities and building on top of what Mobius has already established. When you look at his work, it's immediately clear where his inspiration comes from, but he has a different line and space relationship within his drawings that is just really unique, and I can stare at his stuff forever. I'm looking to start collecting his prints, but at the moment I've just been, like gawking and like stalking on Instagram and his other portfolio websites. I like how he shares his process works, and you can see some behind the scenes, his line work on paper, for example, how he works with pen. I also think his sense of color and how he indicates atmospheric perspective using only flat colors is very neat. The next artist I want to go over is Walden, and here I have her comic book On a Sunbeam. It is a story about space. I know there's been a theme going on so far in this video. Sci-fi is just something I've always been very fascinated with. It's been a pretty big part of my childhood. I think I group sci-fi along with my interest and study in the Western occult and esoteric spirituality, stuff like that. I don't even know how to describe this. It's just definitely enfolding a lot of suspended time, a lot of jumping back and forth in timelines. So if you're the kind of person that really loves fragments like I do, I had the privilege to have met her in person. She visited RISD a year ago and she came to my comics class. During her visit, she mentioned she is an incredibly fast worker, so I think she wrote this whole thing in a couple of months. She hits the page straight away with pen and there's no prior drafting. Like, well, what the heck? How? What? I feel like something that is very specific to Tilly is her thread that ties everything together is very emotional, very empathetic. She breaks a lot of rules, so a lot of conventional comic rules about spacing, gutter, composition, and pacing, she definitely just kind of like does her own thing. She goes off of the conventions and she is very innovative in the sense of how she redefines the format. And her color is beautiful. I love how in a way, the line work is pretty simplistic or minimalistic. She really likes to group shapes together, and it allows the reader to sort of journey through at a relatively fast pace. Tilly has published 7 comics, her first one at age 18. The way she paces dialogue and stretches moments of silence between 2 characters, because sometimes it just doesn't really need to be said, and I think as a reader and an artist, I can really resonate with her approach. So definitely recommend her. She also has prints available, but again, if you have a chance, her comics is just Oh my gosh. We're gonna take a look at some more lifestyle, everyday themes and genres and how illustrators have approached these themes. I purchased Small Adventures by Kiko Brewer. Again, sorry if I am butchering her name. I'm so sorry. I've never been able to make a mark in this journal because it's just so precious and the illustrations are so adorable and cute. This book goes over how you can find adventure in your everyday life in your own neighborhood by looking small and observing carefully. It's a great way to slow down your busy day or just to find inspiration when you're feeling stuck. 2020 is finally going to be the year where I'm going to draw in this book. I will definitely update when that happens. I'm thinking about filling it up with leaves or little twigs, little berries, receipts and stickers. I definitely think a collaging approach, it would be good for this journal because you can hear it. There's like an amount of stiffness. It might have been the intention of Kiko to allow her readers to use wet mediums such as glue, gesso, gouache. I'm pretty sure her illustrations are done in gouache. It looks like it. It could be a combination of gouache and digital. Next up, we have Ayumi Sakugawa. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Yumi. She actually had a talk once at my school, and then I missed it because I had class. So it was like the one chance I got to like be in her presence and like feel her aura, and then I should have skipped class basically. Here I have the little book of life hacks, how to make your life happier, healthier, and more beautiful. Yumi has come out with several books. I also have her book, There Is No Right Way to Meditate, as well as a small illustrated guide to the universe. Unfortunately, those two are in California at the moment at my parents' house, so this is the only one that I have with me right now. It has somewhat of a comic format. There are divided or sectioned into different categories. Not only do I admire her for just how she is able to integrate text and image, it's so free. It gives off the illusion of spontaneity, but I know like she has so much mileage under her belt that she's able to sort of maintain this carefree energy in her composition. So for example, this page talks about tips for having healthy and attractive hair. Here we have the 8 super easy and super delicious popsicle recipes, which is going to be really great for the summer. There are also a couple of really interesting like practical advice. So 10 DIY ways to repair nicks and scratches on wooden furniture, which is really cool. Weird tricks to outsmart your bad moods. So Yumi has a very forgiving approach to our shadow selves, the parts of ourselves that we exile when we feel guilt, when we feel shame, when we feel like, wow, like I'm a really shitty person. I can't believe I am likable because I know how terrible I am. And Yumi has this way of, I want to say somewhat confrontational but inclusive method. I definitely recommend Yumi for those who just want to start focusing a little bit more on themselves, on self-care, on presence, on how they are managing their time, what to keep and what to cut away in their life. I think Yumi's drawings and words will be very helpful for that. So now we have the fashion of 109.69 AD. Is this a point or is this a period or a comma? An academic study by Alexander Laird. I'm sorry. So in the back, the summary reads, the year is 109,069 AD. Humanity lives on monstrous behemoths called the Giantess. They are the proverbial islands that would hold our very society and culture together. But how long can this last? Are we in a decline currently? What is the fashion like right now? My colleagues and I ask these very questions. Will you lend us your mind as we explore this together? It's printed with Rizo, I believe, judging from the way the colors are mixed. It has like this cross between looking digitally printed but also looking screen printed. It sits somewhere in the middle in terms of its neatness and its offset. The reason why I was really drawn to this book is because I had a dream a long time ago. It's not a premonition. It could have been in my past life because at the time I was working on a lot of past life regressions. So in the dream I was in the ocean, except the ocean came up to my ankles. And then I was looking at the sky and there were 2 suns. One was setting and one was rising, and there were 2 different colors. And I remember feeling like I had this big body. I felt like I was a mountain. But I knew that I wasn't the only soul or consciousness occupying this body. I shared it with others, and we had different glowing parts on our bodies in the mountain structure. It was like this ultramarine blue and ruby red. I remember that very clearly. So when I came across the zine, it sort of just like brought me back to that dream, and the depictions of these characters eerily similar to what I dreamt of. Especially this one right here. The artist definitely took a couple of bold decisions in terms of printing, using these colors, and meant low contrast but high saturation. And I thought that was very interesting and unique. So last but not least, I wanted to include a tarot deck. Tarot cards are very subjective because there are so many different artists working on their own interpretations of all the existing major and minors. So this one I purchased on eBay. It is called the Love and Mystery deck, and the artist is Ayumi Kasai. I usually keep my tarot in a little satchel like this. This one I got from my best friend Iris many years ago. I also have the sister deck, as I call it, the Amano tarot deck done by the one and only Yoshitaka Amano. I first got the Amano and then I got this one. I personally now resonate with the Love and Mystery a little bit more. I don't know if I would recommend this deck for beginners. So the major arcanas as well as the court cards are full illustrations. However, the minors are all like this, tokens or just numbered, similar to playing cards. If you're not familiar with tarot as a whole, you might become stuck or confused because traditionally all 78 cards have illustrations on them. Two of Swords, let's say. Judging from this illustration, you can't tell that Two of Swords indicates a fork in the road. The inability to make a decision, feeling stuck and confused because there are many different arguments to the same problem, and at the moment you see truth on each side. It represents hesitation, it represents calculation, but all of that is omitted. So for intermediate readers, I think this is a great challenge. It definitely works to stretch your intuitive third eye, if you want to call it that. They also deviated quite a bit from the traditional symbolisms. They took liberty and altered a lot of things. Depending on how you want to approach your study, if you are someone who is very curious about the history of tarot, about how tarot has evolved and manifested into something we can use in our modern everyday life, I would suggest starting with the Rider-Waite or the Universal Golden deck, because those stick pretty close with a lot of introduction, like beginner books. I would encourage everyone who is interested in tarot to just be bold. You don't have to wait for someone to gift you a deck to start. I purchased my own deck. I did not wait for someone to hand it to me. I have never bought used decks though. I have about 11 right now, and I swap them in and out depending on what cycle and what chapter I am in my life. So that is the end of the video. I hope that this brings you inspiration and ideas, and maybe there are certain things you want to look into. Feel free to comment below if you have any artists from January of this year that you want to share with me. I definitely will look into all of them. If you have any book recommendations, or if you want me to do more book recommendations. Have a wonderful day or night, and I will talk to you soon. Bye bye. Is it dance time? Thank you again for watching. My no bane look is inspired by my best friend Iris. Check her out. I'm hungry. Time for ramen. Ramen!